Hello, pro-socializers. This is another update to correct a common mistake in general public understanding. So, often people say that the problem that we have in society that's keeping things from working well is human greed. As if there's this unavoidable characteristic of humans that makes us unable to collaborate correctly and effectively in order to work as a global team and prosper all together. So one thing I want to point out is that greed is simply an imbalance of ambition. Ambition is very good, and it's a wonderful thing that humans have because it pushes us. We strive to improve, to grow, to innovate. And so ambition is a very good thing. Now what happens is that when it's unbalanced, it is what we call greed. Okay? Now, the situation that we have in our society today is that greed is not only fostered, but it is also rewarded. So the most greedy people are those who climb to the top. And because we celebrate wealth, we appreciate and promote greediness, essentially. But the problem is that even if someone is able to correct and be very self-conscious and know that greed is still a bad thing and that wealth is not what is good in life, even though it gives us a lot of benefits in society and even though it helps us be appreciated in society, some people know better and focus on higher values. But what happens is that people who do lose their competitive edge. And this means that they eventually are at risk of losing their job. And that means that they are essentially at risk of losing their living. They no longer will be able to earn a living because in this society we oblige people to earn a living, which means that they have to have a salary, which means they have to be employed. And so, if they aspire to higher values and gift and are generous and care about the environment, they lose their competitive edge, and that's the problem. Now, let me give a few examples of how that can happen. So, one example is, let's say I want to stop and help my neighbor fix his car, right? So, because I see he's having a problem in the morning, well, I arrive late at work. And I arrive late at work and the boss takes notice. And so the next time there's a race, they won't be thinking about me. And if he needs to lay people off, I will be on that list. Because I was late for work because I helped my neighbor. Right? Or because I went to work early. I went home early because I wanted to spend more time with my kids. Or I needed to bring my kids to extracurricular activities. So those are two clear examples. Another good example is, for instance, we all know that open source is more pro-social than proprietary software because when we use it, it fosters other people to use it and encourages programmers to program open source and open source compatibility with all sorts of different services and products, IT products and services, either of public administration or of company business. And what happens then is that more and more people have access to very sophisticated computer products for free. So that's something that all of society benefits from. Open source, using open source. But if we choose to use open source, typically we have compatibility issues. For instance, we have to make sure to save the files in a different format to be able to share them with our colleagues. We have to adjust the configurations of our computer to be able to be compatible with public administration requirements. Platforms that are requiring certifications, etc. So we lose hours of our month, and that means that those are hours that we either lose relaxing or we lose at our work. So we become less effective, which means that we will either slowly lose clients or slowly be less interesting to our bosses. Another example, for instance, is if I buy free range and grass-fed meat, then that means I don't have enough. I may not have enough money to pay for repairs in my home, right? I may not have enough money to pay for the plumber, right? Which means I'll have to do my own plumbing, which means once again I lose time, and so either I sleep less, or I get late to work, or I spend less time with my wife and she starts being less happy, which makes the whole situation worse when we aren't happy at home, either our wives or our kids. Another example, for instance, is if I buy organic clothes, right? If I buy organic clothes, more expensive, I don't have as much money to pay for instance, a healthier meal, right? And if I pay for I have to buy cheaper meals. That means that I have less health, which means that I'm less effective at work, and I have to eventually I will have to spend more on healthcare. So, or if I'm buying clothes that the dye is organic, natural dyes. Well, I don't look as shiny. If I don't look as shiny, my clients or my bosses to pay less attention to me. They don't find me as impressive. And when time comes around, they may choose someone else instead of me. And so I will lose my employment, or I will lose clients. For instance, let's say I want to take public transport or ride my bike. The same thing happens. I have to get up earlier in the morning. And if I get up earlier in the morning, that means I have to sleep less, which means I am tired at work. And therefore, I am less effective at my job. So, or I am grumpier at home. So there are all these examples. And what happens is that little by little, we lose our competitiveness. And therefore, we lose our clients, we lose our bosses. Eventually, when there are budget cuts, or when, for instance, sorry about that. So, or for instance, when there's a situation in which my clients are looking for me, and I have gone home to help my neighbor, or to be with my family a little more, because it's very important to be with our children. If not, we have to hire someone else to take care of them, for instance, or pick them up. And so what happens is that the clients are looking for us, and we're not there, so they find someone else to serve them. So these are a whole bunch of examples of how, even if we aren't greedy per se, and we try not to be, we try to just spend time on what matters, and care for the environment and care for the people around us, we can't. We can't, because we eventually are surpassed by people who are self-exploiting themselves or cutting corners to provide cheaper and faster service. So that's why we have to pro-socialize and meet people's needs unconditionally. Thanks for listening, and enjoy Shared World.